Hey, welcome back. So in the last tutorial, we set up our character so that it would at least move forward and backwards. And that's about as far as we got. We spent a lot of time getting everything set up as far as our input system, and then we're able to get started on being able to move. So let's go ahead and jump right back in and finish up our movement inputs for our character so that we can start getting the game set up, doing some of the other blueprints we need to do to prepare for making our own game. All right, so this again, here's the scene. We are just sitting in this sandbox area. Up here, I'm going to click on my blueprint. So my assumption is that you know how to get to your project now. You know how to open it, and you know how to find your blueprints. But again, once you get your project open, whatever method you end up using, here in our content folder, blueprints, player, okay, then double click on your player, and it'll open up your blueprints, right? Now, just a real quick recap. We have our blueprint here. We did our first enhanced movement, IA move. That was the one we created yesterday. We set up our torque and radians. We got our camera so that we could get our camera vector and then use the output from our camera vector to isolate it into the Y direction that we wanted. So our action value Y. We have our first variable here that we set up to be an acceleration multiplier of 40. And then for our player, we made sure that we turned on simulate physics so that our player could move. And then, let's see here, we also set up our camera for absolute rotation right here so that when we do move, the camera doesn't flip around and follow the rotation of the ball. It actually stays put in the world, okay? And watches the ball rotate, not rotate with the ball. So that's where we left off. Now we're going to go ahead and finish out this particular blueprint. And what we need to do is we need to actually make it so that the ball will slow down when we stop accelerating. Because right now, the sphere or the ball will continue rotating. If you keep holding the input button down for move, the W button down, or the S button for backwards, it'll just keep accelerating, and we don't want that. We want to kind of cap it out at a top point. So what we're going to do is we're going to first over here add another variable. So hit the plus button, and the variable we're going to want to call this one is dampening, because we're going to use dampening to slow this down. Okay, and there's two different types of dampening that we're going to use in these blueprints. We'll get into that in just a second. So we're going to make this a float. So this is going to be another float. We're going to compile it again, remember, so that we can get our value over here. And then for the dampening value, it needs to be just 0.5. I know it seems pretty low, but the dampening actually takes effect pretty fast. With that, we're going to go ahead and pull this out, and we're going to just get that variable. From here, we want to right-click, and we're going to set linear dampening, and it's going to be for the player. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to just delete this one right here and connect this one in so that we don't have multiple repeats of the same input. Especially since they're so close together, it's not really necessary. All right, and then we're going to connect these two together, and we're going to connect our dampening into here, okay? I'm going to compile it and save it, and I'm going to highlight this whole thing right here. If you hit C on your keyboard, so like we did before, we're going to go ahead and give this a title. We're going to call it movement. Okay, I was making mine green. Way that I can keep them looking the same color if this is something you wanted to do. Again, you can also leave it gray. You don't have to change the color at all. But if I go back to my previous one here, click on it. Down here is the hex sRGB code for it. So if I Control C and copy it, and then go to this one, I can just paste that right into here and hit OK, and it'll change it. Not necessary, but you can do that. Now let's go back in and test real quick to make sure that our dampening is working. I'm going to hit play, and if I hold W down, it should reach a max speed point and then kind of stop. If you did it before, you would have seen that it would just keep accelerating. The other thing I'm looking at when I'm looking at the player now is that we've got this kind of weird blurring happening, which probably would be realistic, but I'm not really liking it so much, okay? So for my player, I don't really want that. It kind of gets a little bit distracting, especially if you're going to change out the material and have a different view for it. So one way we can fix that is there's actually two different places. We could go in a project setting and change it, and that would change the blur for the entire game. But I don't really want to do that for the entire game. I just want to set it up for this particular player. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to go back into our blueprint here, and we're going to select player camera. And if we select player camera and we type in blur, we'll come up with, under post-processing, some of the things that the camera is going to do for us, right? One of those things is motion blur. Right here where it says amount, I'm going to click on amount, and I'm going to turn this to 0 because I don't want any motion blur coming out of my camera. And this is a personal preference. Again, this is something that at this point you can decide. Do you want it? You don't want it? If you're not sure, just either do it or don't do it for now and then come back and change it later. But if we hit play, now you're going to see the difference. So when I'm rotating, now the blur isn't quite as bad. It was really significant before. Okay, and now if you go back and forth and just compare it, you'll see what I'm talking about. There's still a little bit of a blur, but it's not like it was before where it was just this really annoying kind of fuzzy out of focus looking effect. Not a big fan of that. All right, so that is another thing that we can get taken care of. Check that off our list. All right, so let's go ahead and make it so that we can actually look around while we're moving. And that's kind of how we're going to be able to control the direction that our, well, that is how we're going to control the direction of our ball when we're moving, okay? So let's go ahead and get that in here. Remember, we put in IA action, so IA underscore, and we're going to pick look, because that's what we're going to use. We created this so that we can move our mouse around. And just like, actually we haven't done that yet before, have we? Yeah, we did it up there. We broke the, we split this right here. So we're going to go in here, we're going to split this struct pin, and we're going to get our X and Y variables, right? Now, inside of Unreal Engine, just like we had these right here, the torque and radians and the set linear dampening, we already have some preset functions to be able to control and set the mouse. So we're going to add controller. Okay, and then we type that in, you'll see that we got pitch, roll, and yaw. Now, we're only going to be moving on the X and Y, so we're not going to use roll. We're going to use pitch and yaw. The first one we're going to select is yaw, and then I'm going to go ahead and right-click again, and I'm going to put in add controller, okay, and we're going to get our pitch. So now we've got both of those sitting right here. We're going to connect the triggered into this so that they're activated. And we're going to call these functions when we are using our mouse. And our output for X goes into the yaw variable here. And then our Y value goes into our pitch right there. So this allows us to look up and down and left and right. Now, if we double click on this pin or on this line right here, again, we can maneuver these little spaghetti lines around so that we can kind of clean up and track where these different inputs are going. So we're going to go ahead and compile it. We're going to highlight it, hit C again on the keyboard, and our comment is going to be camera look, because this is going to control our camera look so we can look around. Now, the other thing we need to do is I'm going to clear out these details up here, come back over here to my spring arm, and in order to be able to look around, we have to tell it what we're going to use to look around. And in this case, we want to use the use pawn control rotation. If you hover over it, it explains a little bit more in depth what it all does. We're going to put a check mark there, because if we don't do that, nothing's going to happen. We're basically just going to be just like we are right now. We can't look around. So now if we go back in here and we hit play, I can click in the scene, and now I can look around. Now if I move forward. Now I can look sideways and move my ball that direction. And I can look back this direction. And I can move around. All right, so now we've got a ball that can be our character and move around in the world. All right, first step done. Now it would be kind of nice if we could actually stop, right? So let's go ahead and let me select this real quick. I should have this still copied and pasted. Let's see if that works. It is. Okay, so now it's matching my other movement boxes. So let's go ahead and take care of stop. So again, remember, right click. We're going to do IA underscore, and we should have stop right there. Now this is a little bit more complicated than our camera look, because we're going to have to do some resetting of dampening, and we're going to use a different type of set dampening like we did up here for movement, set linear dampening. We're actually going to set angular dampening for this one. Okay, so that when we go to stop, it's a little bit more immediate than just kind of slowing us down. First off, for dampening, let me go ahead and open the eyeball right here so that we can come in and later adjust this if we want to. Remember, when we do that, that also makes it so that we can edit it, right? And we're also going to have to create another variable. We're going to hit the plus button here, and we're going to call this stopping factor. So it's an input that's going to determine how quickly we stop. And it's maybe a little bit confusing because actually what we're doing is we're going to be setting this dampening control here back and forth so that when we move, it changes. But we're also going to be immediately using this setup to stop and allow us to move again inside of this blueprint. So we're going to grab this dampening, and we've been using get. But now we're going to set it. So when we push this button, what's going to happen? We need to actually hit the down arrow right here because we're not going to use triggered for this one. We're going to use started for this one. We're going to go here. So when we push the button, so when we start this, we're going to set our dampening to whatever we want it to be. And that value is actually going to be what our current dampening value is. So we're going to get that, whatever our current dampening value is. And right now it's 0.5 when we start this. And then we're going to take the stopping factor, and you know what? We got to compile this and actually give the stopping factor a value. And the value is going to be 5. Kind of low, but it's enough to make this stop pretty quickly. Okay, and we're going to go ahead and grab that, and we're going to go ahead and get it. And we also need to compile it again and say that. All right, so we have our current dampening value. We have this stopping factor. And we're going to add these two things together. So I'm going to pull out from this pin. And if I hold the shift and hit the equal plus button, it'll come up with add on my keyboard. You can also type in add, and you'll get this function to add these two together. So we're adding these two floats together. And I'm going to plug that into there. So basically, when we push this button, we're going to set our dampening to a new value. It was 0.5. We're adding 5 to it. So now it's going to be 5.5. And when we pull out of this, the next thing we want it to do, besides just setting our dampening, is we're going to go ahead and set angular dampening, and it's going to be for the player, just like last time, right? I'm going to grab this, drag it down here. We want a second one of these. Before we actually put a value in this, because we're going to have this hardwired in with a value, we could also use this stopping factor, which probably would be... No, actually, we don't want to do that because we want this to always be the same number. We could use this, and then if we make it so that this stopping factor was an adjustable variable, which we're not going to do. So anyway, we'll come back to that in a second. Click on your angular dampening, do Control-D to duplicate it, and then we can take the player and plug it in down here so that we have the player, this static mesh for the player being the thing that's having the angular dampening adjusted to it. And from this one, we're going to pull out from canceled right here. And actually, we're not going to do that. We're going to go ahead and just grab another dampening because we're going to set it again. So we're going to set this dampening. Now we're going to pull out from canceled. So when we let go of the button, the stopping button, which is the tab button, we're going to go ahead and set this again. This time, we're going to do a little bit of math, and we're going to clamp it to a value. So we're going to pull out dampening again. We're going to get it. So we're going to get whatever our current is. So if we've added it, if we've changed it to 5.5 based off of this setup right here, then we're going to have 5.5 for this value here. And we're going to now subtract our stopping value. So I'm going to pull out from there. I'm going to get the minus button. So if you just hit the minus button on the keyboard, or you can type in subtract, we're going to get subtract. I'm going to add these together or subtract them. we're going to put those in there and subtract, all right? So now we're going to take the value of 5.5 minus 5. That's going to set that to 5, but I got ahead of myself because there are some instances where this might happen a couple of times, but we don't want to accidentally have it go negative. We could potentially make this negative with the way this is set up. If it's negative, we have a negative dampening, that's actually going to be like causing an acceleration. And in the last version of this game, discovered that as a feature that you could actually rocket your player right out of the world. We don't want to do that. So what we're going to do is we're going to use what's called a clamp. So we're going to pull out from here, we're going to type in clamp, and we want a float clamp right here. So at the very top under float, we want clamp float. And we're going to set the minimum value at 0.5 rather, because that's the minimum value of our dampening. 0.5, that's the original value. And we want to set it as a max of 0.5, or 5.5 rather, sorry. All right, so now we have those set up. I'm going to put that into here, and we're going to go ahead and feed that there, okay? And we can click this line as well, kind of clean things up a little bit so we have some space happening here. All right. So that should be everything to make it so we can stop. So I'm going to highlight, I'm going to comment, we're going to call this stop. Oops. Okay, that's not going to happen. All right, so now we've got stops. Let's go ahead and test it. Compile, save, go back to our sandbox. We're going to hit play. So now if I'm moving forward, I should be able to hit the tab button and I should stop almost right away. And now he's not moving forward. Something happened. So it's not resetting. Ah, I know why. What did I forget to do? So basically what happened here is here I have these values set at the same. Remember, I got ahead of myself and I wanted to duplicate this one, and then I didn't go back and set this value right here. So when we start, we're going to set this at 5 for our angular dampening. And then when we release, we're going to set it back at 0. And then just make sure I've got everything else the way we want it to be. And stopping factor should be 5. Now, I had a debate about whether or not to put the stopping factor into this as well. Right now, it wouldn't hurt. You could do that, and then you could open it up. But you got to remember that may cause some issues with our dampening in the future. So if we hardwire it at this time, let's see what happens. So now if I'm moving along, hit tab to stop. And I can move along. Okay, so clearly it's not working correctly. And after doing a little bit of troubleshooting, I discovered that I got ahead of myself over here. I said canceled. It should be on completed. So again, if you hold the control button, and drag this off, and then you can put it on completed right here. And once we do that and compile it, so we've got change this to 5 from 0, and this should be moved from canceled to completed. Hit compile. Now if we go back in and hit play, we should be able to stop, and then should be able to accelerate back up again. Okay, just like that. All right. Sorry about the confusion on that one. That was me not looking at my own notes correctly. So the difference here, okay, when we're completing, we're releasing, and it'll tell you the way the trigger has transitioned from trigger to none in this frame, right? So if we cancel, that means we've canceled. It's like a press and hold. So basically, this and this do different things, and we just learned that the hard way. Okay, we can hit the arrow and go back up. Okay, so now we've got basic stuff done. So let's go ahead and get jump going. All right, and jump again. So we're going to right click. We're going to type in IA underscore, and we're going to pull up jump. And with jump, we are going to add an impulse at location. Okay, and again, this is not going to be from triggered. It's going to be from started and completed. Okay, so again, started and completed, not canceled. Started and completed. So if I accidentally say canceled again, no, I didn't mean that. We mean completed, okay? So I'm going to say that up front. So we're going to go ahead and right-click. We're going to add impulse, and we want to do it at location. So we're going to pick the player's location. We want it to be for the player right here, okay? So this player. We're going to go ahead and select started, and we're going to do that. And we're not going to do anything with completed just yet because I'm going to make a demonstration of what's happening, and then we'll come back and we'll finish this out. But we do need to add a couple variables in here, okay? So one of those is going to be jump vector. So a jump vector. And you know what? We're going to go ahead and do both of these at the same time, then come back and set the variables for them. We also need a jump height. All right, so now we're going to compile. For the jump vector, we're going to put it as a positive number. Now, this isn't the actual vector that is going to go in. This is just a positive number and giving us a length for that vector. And then the jump height is going to also be used to determine how high our character is going to jump. And in this case, we're going to set it at 500. We're going to compile and save both of those. Now, let's go ahead and pull them out. We're going to go ahead and get both of these. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to take this and we're going to right-click. We're going to make vector. Okay, and we want to jump upward. So when we have this in Unreal Engine, unlike some other 3D software out there, Z is actually up in Unreal Engine. So we're going to want our jump vector to be in that direction. So this is where we're going to select the vector that's going to, the direction is going to go, which is here, Z. And then we're going to take that and we're going to multiply it. So we're going to pull out from here and we're going to multiply. And we want the floats. And we're going to take this and we're going to multiply it by that. Okay, and it's going to do a little conversion for us. And this is what's going to be our impulse. That's the amount of impulse that we're applying in the Z vector direction. The rest of this, well, let's see if we look at this one, is 0, 0, and we multiplied these together, so 500 times 100 would be, you know, and then that'll give us the impulse and this direction in the Z direction, right? So we can play around with these. So let's go ahead and open these up so that you can make some changes on it later on if you wish. And I'll show you where to do that once we get all of this stuff set up. I'm going to go ahead and compile. Now, the next thing we need to do is we need to give it a location, right? We want to do it at the player's location. And the way we're going to do that is we're going to right-click and we're going to get player. We're going to get the player pawn, right? Because we're using a pawn. We're not going to get the controller. We want the pawn itself. And from this, we can now get the location of that player in the world. So we're going to get actor. We don't want transform because that's everything. That's scale, that's rotation, and location. All we want to know is where it is. So we're going to just get the location. And we're going to take this and we're going to put it up there. Now this bone name, we're not going to do anything with it. But if you had a skeletal mesh component for your player and you wanted it to have impulse from a certain bone on its body, say it had a backpack that was a jetpack or something like that, you could apply impulse from that location if you wished. For whatever reason, I'm not sure that was a good example, but I think you get the idea. We would use the bone name from that skeletal mesh to put it here, and that's where the impulse location would come from, would be applied to on that particular character. All right, so now we've got everything set up there. Let's compile it and save it. And we're going to go back in here. We hit play. Now, remember the space bar is how I set mine up. Whatever you set yours up. So if I hit the space bar, I'll jump. Now, if I hit the space bar more than once, and if I keep mashing on it, I would just keep flying up into the sky until it runs out of energy. And one or two things will happen. This map actually has some limits, so if I go outside some set limits, it'll stop playing, my player will disappear. And now I fell through the world. All right. So I'm going to select my player start over here. After I hit escape, I'm going to stop, hit player start, hit the F to come back up to my world. So there I am. So we're going to fix that. And that's what I was talking about. Now, we've got just about everything set up here, but we are missing a node or two. Okay. And that particular node, I'm just going to grab this and drag him out here this way a little bit. We're going to do a thing called a do once. So right click and do once. So if you type in do once, you've got two choices. We're going to pick this one right there. And we're going to take that started. We're going to put it in the top pin. And then when it's completed, we're going to go here. Now, the problem with this is if I hit play and I jump, it gets rid of that. But now I can never jump again. That's not what we want. That's where this comes in. Okay, once it's completed, so once we completed, it would reset it. But that's not going to really do what we want it to do, because what will happen is every time I let go of the button, it'll reset, so it'll be just exactly the same as it was before. That's not something we want, but there is something that we can do. So if we drag out from completed and type in delay, right here, this is the one we want. We want the one that just says delay, and then we can plug this into reset. So now we can set a delay. Once we let go of the button, we can make it wait for a certain amount of time before it'll reset. I have played around with this, and from practice with the way I have my jump set up at 500 for my jump height, that if we make the player wait 1.5 seconds, so 1.5 seconds. Now you may have to play around with yours to get the right mix, but if I hit play in the world, and now if I jump, I can mash it all I want, and my player doesn't jump until 1.5 seconds is completed. So basically, oh, that's interesting. Unreal Engine's funny sometimes. Things will happen. All right, so now that kind of controls the jump. So we can't just mash on it and launch ourselves up into space. The player can only jump your set height one time, and usually in that duration. So if I'm moving along, oops, let's hit play. If I'm moving along and I jump, I'll jump, and then I can jump again. You can hear me mashing my keyboard. Every once in a while, it'll catch it just right where I might get a ability to kind of do a double jump. And that's okay. For this, that'll be all right. Okay, so let's go ahead and highlight this. Select it. Again, we're going to comment. Let's see if I can get away with just doing my paste. I think I haven't done anything, so Control V and hit OK. It worked. Okay. So now we've got all of our inputs set up. I'm going to compile and save it. And that is it for this tutorial. All of those inputs that we put in yesterday, or the last time in the last tutorial, it was yesterday for me, have now been applied to our character. We still need to do some more things to the character, but that's the initial movement. So now you can run around, explore your world, and add some things into it if you wish. And kind of play around with it a little bit and see how it works. Start coming up with some ideas of what you might want to do for the game. But we are going to continue moving forward. We're going to add the boost. We're going to go ahead and add the HUD. And we'll also add a health system and an interact system for our player. So we still got more to do on our player, but we've got it started. And that's the great thing here. All right. So again, if you have any problems, any questions, something comes up, go ahead and hit me up in the comments section, and I will get back to you. If you liked the video, please like it. If you haven't already subscribed to my channel, please do so, and I will see you next time.